Hello everyone and welcome to my latest video. In this video I will be reworking an old art piece of mine that I felt like I could make a few changes to. So these photos here are from back in 2011, back when I wasn't really recording the process of my artworks. I mostly wanted to recast it from silicone so then I could punch hair into it and to take the realism up a notch, and also change it to be wall mountable, just like it has been taxidermy. So the first thing that I have to do is to find the original mould, which is up in storage along with all my other moulds which I've made over the years. So I'm going to have to climb up into the ceiling and push out some of the other moulds to get to the big mould. There's plenty of hidden gems up there, so maybe one day I'll go through and have a really good look and perhaps do some more recasting of these old moulds. After a wash and clean, the mould looks like it's in pretty good condition, and it's held up really well considering it's probably about 11 years old. And now it's time to mix up some skin colour for the silicone. I wanted a little more of a translucent look to the skin, so I used some clear silicone and mixed pigment into it. And these pigments are silicone pigments that are specifically designed for mixing into silicone itself. The mould itself is made from polyurethane and fiberglass, which doesn't stick so well to silicone, so we should be able to get the cast out with too much trouble. It's best to build up the silicone in layers for strength, so I've used about 3 layers for this skin, which should give me enough thickness for the head to be punched in easily, which you'll see later. And if I had to guess, I was aiming for about 5mm thickness all the way through. Because the silicone has a little bit of give to it, I need to give the sculpture a more rigid inside frame, which can also support the piece when mounted on the wall. So here I'm filling it with a strong gypsum plaster called Fortin MG. And after the plaster is set, I'm demoulding the cast, and of course the silicone has adhered to the polyurethane shell because I didn't use proper silicone release agent, so I did struggle a fair bit with actually getting the mould apart. And not only that, I did make a rookie mistake of forgetting to insert the marbles into the eyes, which act as a placeholder for the eye sockets. I did try to cut out the excess silicone and reinsert the eye into the socket. For the most part it worked, but in the end I wasn't fully happy with it, so I did have to recast the entire head. But this time I inserted each eye separately, let them cure, and had a much more refined cast in the end. So with this recast, after I had removed all the flashing around the edges, I wanted to have a better way of mounting the head so that I could more easily move it around for when I had to paint it. So I used an old chopping block that I had lying around and cut it down to a circle as a good solid base. Then I spent a few hours refining the join lines in the cast, which includes filling in these little imperfections and sanding down any protruding edges. So here he is ready for painting a unifying base coat, and this is how I like to paint my silicone works. I get a decent quality silicone sealant and mix pigments into it and then thin it down with white spirits. But to run it through the airbrush it definitely has to be passed through a paint strainer first. Then it can be airbrushed on and we can get a good consistent colour down. With the base coat done, now it's time to build up some texture in the skin. I like to get a paintbrush and flick on different tones of skin colour, from yellows and browns and reds, just to build up some variation in the skin, almost like freckles. Brushing the talcum powder on helps reduce the glossy look that comes with airbrushing, just to give the skin a little more natural look. And now here I'm just refining some details with the texturing of the paint and just bringing back some of the detail that was lost in the process of applying the talcum powder to the skin. And after some consideration, I thought that I might actually cut him so that I could mount him onto a board as if he's been mounted onto like some sort of trophy board, which is more in line with a lot of taxidermy heads that you might see, which is more the look that I'm going for. And after cutting it flush with the board, there's a gap here at the front, so I'm just going to fill that in with some of the offcuts from earlier. I thought that I would make this backing board twice as thick, just so I could mount like a bracket onto the back side of it for easy hanging on the wall. And I thought that I would route the edges to give it more of a decorative look, and just sanding the edges down too, just to make them nice and smooth. It was a little bit of a muck around to get his head to mount on the board properly, but in the end I managed to get a steel bracket and attach it on, so it is very securely attached to the wood. So now this is all the basic framework done. So now I can just start refining the details, and so I'll punch some hair into him soon, finish his eyes, and also put some clothing on him. So this is an old silicone mold that I have for casting eyes. I have made it previously for some of my other projects. So it's literally just like maybe a 22mm wide sphere, and then just cast clear resin into it and mounted a bamboo skewer onto it so I can get a better handle on it. And this is the process that I use. I'll spray paint and undercoat with white, and then eventually build up some layers of blue for the pupil. And so this is just really thin down blue paint, and just building up different layers just to give it a bit of depth. And this is one little trick that I like to use when I'm making eyes. I'll apply some PVA glue and then just really small cut off strands of wool, like red wool, and you can see if you sort of paint them on, they look like miniature veins, just like what you'd see in like a human eye. And then finally, just to bring out the shine, I'm just covering them in glass coat, which is a high gloss resin. And with these eyes inserted, he's really coming to life now. He's getting a lot more personality now. Now these three tools here, they're literally just paintbrush handles that I've cut the brush part off of, and I've inserted sewing needles into the end upside down, and then cut them, cut the eyes in half to make these tiny little forks. And then, just to punch the hair into the skin, which is the whole point of this project. You just grab each hair and insert it individually. So yeah, this is the most time-consuming part of this project. I'm not entirely too sure how long it took, but I'd guess maybe between 20 and 30 hours all up. So yeah, I just did an hour or two each night, and eventually got there in the end. So yeah, this is the process. It's like sometimes you can get away with punching in maybe a few at a time, as in a little tuft, but for the most part I wanted to go for individual hairs, just to really give it the more of a like a refined look. And I paid a lot of attention to these join lines. You can see in the center there's a little bit of a join line where the mold has linked itself up, and just to hide that mold line, I put a lot of hair over that join, so just to disguise the mold line. And yeah, there's a bit of styling and back and forth going on. In some parts the hair was too long, so I'd trim it down a little bit, and also tried to keep longer hair on the back of his mane, and yeah, some shorter hair in the front. And to disguise the part that I added on separately, I thought that I would give him a bit of a collar, and so I went down to the local op shop and bought some sort of I don't know, like a leopard print shirt, and then some sort of like a blazer over it.
Somewhere between a pH of 3 and 4, mold or other fungus can grow on any of the surface that's exposed to air. You're supposed to skim it off.
And after cleaning up some rough edges with the clothing, it's basically all done. And just as a finishing touch, I thought that I would just plait some twine around the edge to disguise the seam and make it sit more flush. So here he is all finished, mounted on the wall, and he looks pretty good. It was good to revisit some old techniques that I haven't used for quite some time. I've mounted him on the wall at work, and already I've fooled a couple of people with him into thinking that he was real with how realistic he looks. And finally, if you could like and subscribe, that'd be great. Thanks for watching.